This isn't acceptable. It's just not remotely acceptable. Cyberpunk 2077 has just released, and as hyped as the game was and as fun as the game is, much of the development and marketing practices surrounding it are absolutely unacceptable. Not from a company that gets held to as high esteem as cdprojektred does, and it's about damn time people start holding them accountable for it. Cyberpunk 2077 has been in active development for at least 4 years, shortly after The Witcher 3 was released, and the last year alone has seen its fair share of drama, what with it being delayed 3 fucking times. We might as well begin at the start then. The game was initially announced 8 years ago in 2012, and a year later a teaser trailer was released. This was 4 years before the game would even enter pre-production proper, let alone active development. I'm sure we've all heard the announcement of an announcement meme by now, but announcing something 4 years before you're even ready to bother writing something down is quite impressive. It's the video game equivalent of a premature ejaculation. Skip to 2016, just after the Blood and Wine DLC for The Witcher 3 was finally released, and CDPR would start devoting more resources to 2077. They would set up a new studio in Wrocław, Poland, acquire a grant worth $7 million by the Polish government, and they would partner with a few other companies that would provide additional support for features like ray tracing and quality assurance. All this to make sure that Cyberpunk 2077 was the greatest game that ever lived. It was scheduled to release April 2020, but was delayed in January until September the same year, and while I know COVID negatively affected a lot of companies, the January delay was early enough that it's unlikely to me that coronavirus was a major factor in the decision at the time. Then, in June, that September release would be delayed until November, and only 2 weeks prior to the November release was the game delayed for a final time until December 10th. 4 release dates, 3 delays. Again, I get that COVID has negatively affected every major company in the world right now, but this is a game that was announced 8 years ago, been in development for 4 years, and this entire time we barely had any tangible evidence that the game was even real, let alone close to being finished. And now that the game is finally released, we're showing it's a fucking mess. A day 1 patch that is as large as the game itself? Fucking amazing. Oh, you have bandwidth caps and shit download speeds? Sucks to be you. Why bother preloading at all if you're just going to replace 80% of the assets 2 days later? Game-breaking bugs, performance issues. I mean, look, I don't think it's realistic to expect 4K RTX to work on pretty much anything because fuck 4K, but the performance charts aren't looking hot for even 1080p. A game that is apparently supposed to run on the PS5 and Xbox One? Are you fucking joking? This is all without even mentioning the various ragdoll issues and things such as Twitch streamers getting DMCA notices even when playing in the copyright-free music mode. It's a great mode, I'll give them that. Why the fuck doesn't it work? But for me, these are just the cherry on top. The game having issues after so long is just the icing on a shit cake. No, my problem is the complete clusterfuck that is the internal management of the company itself. There were reports way back in January at the outset of the first delay that CDPR were experiencing severe crunch, and probably had been for a while. The big issue with this was that only a few months before that had Jason Schreier reported that the CDPR pledged to be more humane to its workers. Right, that didn't last long then, did it? But the fact is, CDPR didn't have a hot track record during The Witcher 3 for this sort of thing either, and Jason Schreier, one of the sources for these reports, is pretty reliable. Fast track to September and we get more rumours, more speculation, and then eventually an official confirmation. Now, crunch is a thing in almost any creative industry. I don't like it, I don't find it acceptable. It's symptomatic of poor management and time scheduling, and frankly shouldn't be a thing. The only people it ever truly benefits are the ones making short-term profits, the kind of people who don't care if a company fails so long as they make off like Scrooge McFuck. Fact is, if you're 4 years into development and having to crunch, then something's gone terribly wrong. Your deadlines were completely unreasonable from the start, or maybe your project was way too ambitious. Given that The Witcher 3 had similar issues, I'd imagine it's a bit of both. We're now seeing the negative effects of long-term crunch. Bugs, performance issues, basic fucking gameplay problems. Crunch doesn't help you release shit faster, it just costs you more money. The average human brain can't function on 10 plus hours of non-stop work a day, particularly when it's mentally draining shit like programming and design. After the 6-hour mark, the brain just shuts down. Going twice that long, like half this fucking industry does for potentially years at a time, is crazy. When a person is tired, they make mistakes. Those mistakes have to be fixed at some point. Fixing them costs money and time, which is why we end up with bug-laden launches and day 1 patches that fix exactly fuck all of them. It also sucks from a marketing perspective, especially when they're told at the exact same time as everyone else. What fantastic communication! Marketing and management, the two pieces of a company that rely almost entirely on communication, have failed to communicate with each other. A decision that will potentially have cost CDPR millions, since they would have had to redo every marketing campaign they did. It's not just about the hilarious Twitter post by a PR schmuck who didn't know any better. PR, another area that focuses on communication. But the fact that they had released billboards and posters with the November release set in stone. Only it's not, because apparently nowadays you can just up and cancel anything whenever you fucking feel like it. Hey man, I'm not the dumbass corpo paying for it, what do I care, right? Fuck 'em. So now we have an overly ambitious project led by poor management, which has not only caused employees to work unnecessarily long hours, but the company has also needlessly spent millions of dollars on an equally unnecessary marketing campaign, all because they were chasing the dollars trying to release it too early. Have we learned anything from this? No, of course not, because the gaming industry continues to rely on crunch for the benefit of the people making the real money, which isn't the people working their fucking asses off. Funny how real life is becoming more cyberpunk than the actual fucking game is. And to me, all of this alone is enough to completely shit all over CD Projekt Red, because all of this alone is completely and absolutely unfucking acceptable. But no, CD Projekt Red were convinced they could up themselves just one more time and make themselves look like even bigger assholes by preventing critics from using their own footage. Yes, you heard me. CDPR prohibited review outlets from using their own recorded gameplay footage. Either you use what they gave you, or you use nothing at all, which is completely fucking absurd for any kind of review, but more so for a game which had barely any bloody gameplay footage until about a month ago. Forcing reviewers to showcase the game with selected footage is a massive issue. I've never heard of a studio do this. Worst case is Warner Brothers, who have embargoes all the way up to release, and then their games end up amazing most of the time anyway. Cyberpunk might be the most hyped game of the year, but it sure as fuck isn't the only game where people don't want to go unspoiled. Baldur's Gate 3 is one such game, but Larian don't fuck reviewers in the ass with a rusty pole like they're the mob. Seriously, blocking people's access from using their own recorded gameplay footage pretty much just means that the reviews are pure 100% marketing and not, a fucking review. Great. Wow. Now all of this might be fine in a vacuum. If it were just Cyberpunk 2077 maybe. I don't really agree with that statement, but follow with me for a second. If the company had a relatively good track record, making a few mistakes during an already garbage year could be forgivable. Sure. Except it's not their first mistake. And that's the problem. This is a company that sent a ton of people threatening letters asking them to pay money for their pirated copy of The Witcher 2. And their excuse, their reasoning was, we can 100% identify anyone who pirated the game. Fuck off you can. Oh right, they can't, which is why they backpedaled like crazy the moment anyone with half a brain cell called them out on it. This is the same company who started life by distributing pirated CDs. Seriously, that's CDPR's origin story. They're fucking pirates. It's easy to dismiss a lot of these as normal standard affair in the gaming industry because virtually all major companies engage in at least some of this bullshit. But my argument is that we should never get used to this. Normalizing this behavior makes it acceptable, and if it becomes acceptable, you'll see more of it. Maybe it won't get worse than this. Maybe it will. But frankly, I think it's already pretty fucking bad. But it's more than that. It's the fact that CD Projekt Red is often regaled as a paragon of virtue in a world full of stink. Gamers all over the world hype everything they create, say and do as if the heavens above have blessed us all personally. It's long past time we stop putting them on a fucking pedestal they never had any intention of standing up to. As usual, that's it from me, folks. My name is MrTastix. If you like this kind of shit, then don't forget to smash the shit out of the like and subscribe button. And I'll see you next time.